Hi, this is Sue Leone in the CEG department, talking about goal seek in Microsoft Excel. Let's look at some of your homework problems. So here's 1114. They give us a formula, and the question is basically what input do we need to get an output of 0? So this is just like our first example. Remember, we need to get 0, so it's going to be somewhere in here. My advice to you, since it's between 0 and -5, what you do is you first guess something that's just a little bit inside that range. Goal seek works best when it's got a little bit of a distance towards its target. So we guessed -1 and -4, and here we go up to data, what if, goal seek, and here's another one where we want it to be 0. So we're going to change our guess. All right, let's see if this is actually 0. Let's bump up those decimal places. All right, so let's try our second guess. Remember, if we get confirmation, then we know that that's the correct input. All right, and it changed it in both cases to the same number, so we're pretty certain that that's what we need in order to get 0 as an output. So now, this one is more like the GPA example than the database examples, the ones with lists. Because here, we're not trying to get to 0. We're trying to get a target. What has to happen, we're given this formula, and we're trying to find what is going to be the volume given temperature and a pressure. So we're given this, and we want to end up with that. Well, this is really the X, this is the input, and this is the output. So we basically have to take our formula and rearrange it to solve for something that is not V. Could we have solved for R? Yeah, probably. But it's the ideal gas constant. It's not something that can change. So let's solve for T. So then that becomes our target. That becomes our target. Our target is 400. If we guess that our liters is -1, then what does our temperature have to be in Kelvin? And here it's using the same formula, only instead of looking at volume, it's looking at our X column, our input column, because that way we can copy it down. I have this big formula. So we know that 1 is too large. Here's our guesses. And we can see that some of them are way off. Let's try 1.5, because it seems like it has to be a larger number in order to get closer to 400 Kelvin. So what's our target? We want our temperature to be something that was given to us by changing how much volume there was. And it's done 44 iterations, 60, 75. Remember, we're allowed it to go to 1,000 iterations. Okay, we're at 500 iterations. It still hasn't found an answer. Now, obviously, you couldn't do all that many calculations that fast, but it can, and that's the value of goal seek. Okay, it says it may not have found a solution. What that means is that it took more than 1,000 iterations. Let's see if we have better luck with this one. Again, our target is the known temperature, and then we want to find the volume that would result in that temperature that we know for a fact. Again, it may not have found a solution because it needed more iterations. So we're pretty close to the answer. So let's see if a little bit of distance helps GoalSeek get to its answer in less than 1,000 iterations. Yep, but we have to confirm it. Could have just been an accident. Let's try a different value, and we confirmed it quickly. So that's a lesson to you that sometimes if you get too close to the correct answer, GoalSeek has a problem finding it. And just give it a little bit of space and then it finds it. So we know that the correct input, the amount of volume needed to attain pressures of all of these is going to be 1/4 of a liter. Now, this one in your homework is really quite straightforward. It's just trigonometry. Remember that when you're doing trigonometry and it's an inverse tangent or cosine or sine, in other words, arc tangent, that's what the atan is for, you do have to convert it into degrees after you've done the function. So that's not really using GoalSeek. That's because this entire chapter is not just about GoalSeek. Let's take a look at 1119. We're given this big gnarly formula that calculates what a monthly payment would be given a principal to be borrowed, an interest rate, and a number of payments. Now the interest rate, you can see, was 8% a year. That's the annual percent interest. So 8%. What is the monthly payment for a 36-month term loan with a principal of $10,000? The monthly payment would be $313.36. This is just that same formula, only using cell references instead of variables. So that's letter A. Then they start saying, well, what is the interest rate for a 36-month loan with monthly payments of $350? We want to know, how high does the interest rate have to be? So what if GoalSeek, we're going to set that cell, we want it to be $350 by changing the interest rate. Okay, so now you can see the interest rate per month would have had to be 1.3%. Remember, it can't be a formula. That is so important. What if our target, remember this was what the monthly interest rate was at 8%. So you can see that we'd have to have a pretty lousy credit rating in order to be told, no, in order to borrow $10,000, you have to pay $350 a month. So what if the target was $300? What if we're like, no, we want something better? We can't afford $313. Imagine you're at the car dealership. You got to borrow $10,000 for a car. Maybe you put $1,000 or $2,000 down. You say, well, I can't pay $313 a month. I can only pay $300. And so then the car dealership is going to do this essentially. They probably use a proprietary tool. We're going to change our monthly payment to $300, and they're going to say, okay, well, what interest rate do we have to get So we have to have a really kick butt interest rate in order to get you that still a 3-year loan and still get you a payment of $300. Your interest rate per year would have to be 5%, which is a really good rate. Let's see, what if you can pay 350? You know, the bank tells you, or the car place tells you, okay, you only have to pay 313. And what if you say, well, I can pay 350 a month? What how many payments would it be? So right now you're at this 36 payments, and you actually want to pay 350 a month, and you want to see how early can I pay it off, because there's no penalty for early payment. There used to be about 40 years ago, but now there's not. All right, so we could shave 3 months off that loan, saving ourselves some interest by paying 350 a month. Now here's an extra one. Let's say you're buying a house and you can pay 550 a month for a 30-year loan at this 8% a year interest, which is not a great interest rate. So maybe you have really lousy credit and you say, okay, how much house can I finance? Remember, this is what we're trying to find, and this is where the formula is. Remember, GoalSeek is telling you your input based on a known formula for output. Let's see if we can pay $550 for a house. How much could you borrow? At 8% interest, you could borrow almost $75,000 for a mortgage, for a 30-year mortgage. Well, what if it was a 20-year mortgage? So 240 payments. In order to borrow that same amount, you'd have to pay $627 each month in your mortgage. Well, what if you say, well, you know what? I'm paying $750 in rent. What if I say I'm going to save some money and pay $700 a month for my mortgage, for a 20-year mortgage? Let's set that value to 700 by changing the principal that you can borrow. And you could buy a nice little house. Maybe it's in the outskirts of town, maybe it's a little rundown, maybe it's a really nice little condo. And so these are your choices, and this is where GoalSeek can really help you make some decisions in your life. Now, this was not part of the homework, but it's just something you can do with GoalSeek.